Section 35 of the Arabian Nights Entertainments, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nicole. The Arabian Nights Entertainments, Volume 2, by Anonymous. Translated by Dr. Jonathan Scott, 1754 to 1829. The Story of Noor ad-Deen and the Fair Persian, Part 35. When the fair Persian had ended her song, Noor ad-Deen poured out a cup of wine and presented it to Sheikh Ibrahim. "Sheikh Ibrahim," said he, "I entreat you, drink this to our healths." "Sir," replied he, starting back as if he abhorred the very sight of the wine, "I beseech you to excuse me. I have already told you that I have forsworn the use of wine these many years." "Then, since you will not drink to our healths," said Noor ad-Deen, "give me leave to drink yours." While Noor ad-Deen was drinking, the fair Persian cut half an apple and presented it to Sheikh Ibrahim. "Though you refuse drinking," said she, "yet I believe you will not refuse tasting this apple. It is very excellent." Sheikh Ibrahim had no power to refuse it from so fair a hand, but taking it with a very low bow, put it in his mouth. She said a great many pleasant things on the occasion, and Noor ad-Deen, falling back upon a sofa, pretended to fall fast asleep. The fair Persian presently advanced towards Sheikh Ibrahim, and speaking in a low voice, "Look at him," said she. "Thus in all our merry parties he constantly serves me, and no sooner has he drunk a cup or two, but he falls asleep, and leaves me alone. But I hope you will have the goodness to keep me company till he awakes." At this the fair Persian took a cup, and filling it with wine, offered it to Sheikh Ibrahim. "Here," said she, "drink of this to my health. I am going to pledge to you." Sheikh Ibrahim made a great many difficulties, and begged her to excuse him from drinking, but she pressed him so that, overcome by her charms and entreaties, he took the cup and drank off every drop of the wine. The good old man loved a chirping cup to his heart, but was ashamed to drink amongst strangers. He often went to the tavern in private, as many other people do, and he did not take the precaution recommended, but went directly where he was well known, night serving him instead of a cloak, and saved the money that Noor ad-Deen had ordered him to give to the messenger who was to have gone for the wine. While Sheikh Ibrahim was eating fruit after his draught, the fair Persian filled him out another, which he received with less difficulty than the former, but made none at all at the third. In short, a fourth was quaffing, when Noor ad-Deen started up from his pretended sleep, and bursting out into a violent fit of laughter, and looking at him, "Ha, ha!" said he, "Sheikh Ibrahim, have I caught you at last? Did you not tell me you had forsworn wine, and now you have drunk it all up from me?" Sheikh Ibrahim, not expecting to be surprised, blushed a little. However, that did not spoil his draught, but when he had done, "Sir," said he, laughing, "if there is any crime in what I have done, it lies at this fair lady's door, not mine, for who could possibly resist so many charms?" The fair Persian, who perfectly understood Noor ad-Deen, took Sheikh Ibrahim's part. "Let him talk," said she. "Sheikh Ibrahim, take no notice of him, but let us drink on and be merry." A while after, Noor ad-Deen filled out a cup for himself and the fair Persian, but when Sheikh Ibrahim saw that Noor ad-Deen had forgotten him in his turn, he took his cup, and presenting it to the fair Persian, "Madam," said he, "do you suppose I cannot drink as well as you?" At these words Noor ad-Deen and the fair Persian laughed very heartily. They poured him out some wine, and sat laughing, chatting, and drinking till near midnight. At about that hour the fair Persian began to notice that there was but one candle on the carpet. "Sheikh Ibrahim," said she to the good old officer, "you have afforded us but one candle. when there are so many wax lights yonder? Pray do us the favour to light some of them, that we may see a little better what we are doing." Sheikh Ibrahim, making use of the liberty that wine inspires when it gets into the head, and not caring to be interrupted in his discourse, bade the fair Persian light them for herself. "It is fitter for a young person like you to do it," said he, "than for me, but be sure not to light above 5 or 6. Up rose the fair Persian immediately, and taking a wax candle in her hand, lighted it with that which stood upon the carpet, and without any regard to Sheikh Ibrahim's order, lighted up the whole 80. By and by, while Sheikh Ibrahim was entertaining the fair Persian with some discourse, Noor ad Deen took his turn to desire him to light up some of the candles in the lustres, not taking notice that all the wax lights were already in a blaze. "Certainly," replied Sheikh Ibrahim, "you must be very lazy, or less vigorous than I am, that you are not able to light them yourself. Get you gone and light them, but be sure you light no more than 3. To work he went, but instead of that number, he lighted them all, and opened the shutters of the 80 windows, before Sheikh Ibrahim, who was deeply engaged with the fair Persian, knew anything of the matter. The Caliph Harun al-Rashid, being not yet gone to rest, was in a room of his palace on the river Tigris, from whence he could command a view both of the garden and the pavilion. He accidentally opened the casement, and was extremely surprised at seeing the pavilion illuminated, and at first, by the greatness of the light, thought the city was on fire. The Grand Vizier Jafir was still with him, waiting for his going to rest. The Caliph, in a great rage, called the Vizier to him. "Careless Vizier," said he, come hither, look at the pavilion of pictures, and tell me the reason of its being illuminated at this hour, now I am not there." The Grand Vizier at this account fell into a violent trembling, but when he came nearer, and with his own eyes saw the truth of what the Caliph had told him, he was more alarmed than before. Some excuse must be made to appease the Caliph's anger. "Commander of the true believers," said he, "all that I can say to your Majesty about this matter is, that some 5 or 6 days ago Sheikh Ibrahim came to acquaint me that he had a design to assemble the ministers of his mosque, to assist at a ceremony he was ambitious of performing in honour of your Majesty's auspicious reign. I asked him if I could be any way serviceable to him in this affair, upon which he entreated me to get leave of your Majesty to perform the ceremony in the pavilion. I sent him away with leave to hold the assembly, telling him I would take care to acquaint your Majesty with it, and I ask pardon for having quite forgotten it. Sheikh Ibrahim," continued he, "has certainly made choice of this day for the ceremony, and after treating the ministers of his mosque, was willing to indulge them with the sight of this illumination." "Jafir," said the Caliph, with a tone that plainly shewed his anger was a little mollified, "according to your own account, you have committed 3 faults. The first, in giving Sheikh Ibrahim leave to perform this ceremony in my pavilion, for a person in such an office is not worthy of so great an honour. The second, in not acquainting me with it, and the third, in not diving into the bottom of the good old man's intention. For my part, I am persuaded he only did it to try if he could get any money towards bearing the charge of it, but that never came into your head." The Grand Vizier, overjoyed to hear the Caliph put the matter upon that footing, very willingly owned the faults he reproached him with, and freely confessed he was to blame in not giving Sheikh Ibrahim a few pieces of gold. "Since the case is so," added the Caliph, "it is just that thou shouldest be punished for thy mistakes, but thy punishment shall be light. Thou shalt spend the remainder of the night, as I mean to do, with these honest people whose company I shall be well pleased with, and while I am putting on a citizen's habit, go thou and disguise thyself with Mesrour, and come both of you along with me." The Vizier would have persuaded him it was late, and that all the company would be gone before he could get thither, But the Caliph said he would positively go. The Vizier, who knew that not a syllable of what he had said was true, began to be in great consternation, but there was no reply to be made, and go he must. The Caliph then, disguised like a citizen, with the Grand Vizier Jafir and Mesrour, chief of the eunuchs, stole out of the palace together. They rambled through the streets of Baghdad till they came to the garden. The door, through the carelessness of Sheikh Ibrahim, was open, he having forgotten to shut it when he came back with the wine. The Caliph was very angry at this. "Jafir," said he to the Grand Vizier, "what excuse have you for the doors being open at this unseasonable hour? Is it possible that Sheikh Ibrahim makes a custom of leaving it thus all night? I rather believe the hurry of the feast has been the occasion of this neglect." The Caliph went into the garden, and when he came to the pavilion, resolving not to go into the hall till he knew what was doing, consulted with the Grand Vizier whether it was not his best way to climb up into one of the trees that was near, to observe what was going forward. The Grand Vizier, casting his eyes upon the door, perceived it stood half open, and told the Caliph. It seems Sheikh Ibrahim had left it so, when he was prevailed upon to come in and bear Noor ad-Deen and the fair Persian company. The Caliph, laying aside his first design, stole softly up to the hall door, which standing half open, he could see all the company within, without being discovered himself. But how was he surprised when he saw a lady of incomparable beauty, and a handsome young man sitting, with Sheikh Ibrahim by them. Sheikh Ibrahim held a cup in his hand. "My fair lady," said he to the fair Persian, "a true toper never drinks without singing a song first. If you please to hear, I will give you one of my best songs." Sheikh Ibrahim sung, and the Caliph was the more surprised, because till that moment he never knew of his drinking wine, but always took him for a grave solid man, as he seemed to be to outward appearance. The Caliph retired from the door with the same caution as he had made his approaches to it, and coming to the Grand Vizier, who was standing on the steps a little lower, "Come in," said he to him, "and see if those within are the ministers of the mosque, as you would have made me believe." By the tone of his voice in which the Caliph spoke these last words, the Vizier understood that things went ill on his side. However, he went up the steps, but when he had peeped in at the door, and saw the three sitting in that condition, he trembled for his life. He returned to the Caliph, but in such confusion that he knew not what to say. "What riotous doings are here?" said the Caliph to him. "Who are these people that have presumed to take the liberty of diverting themselves in my garden and pavilion? And how durst Sheikh Ibrahim give them admittance and partake of the diversion with them? I must, however, confess I never saw two persons more beautiful or better paired in my life, and therefore, before I discover my anger, I will inform myself better, and know who they are and the reason of their being here." He went to the door again to observe them more narrowly, and the Vizier, who followed, stood behind him, while he fixed his eyes upon them. They both plainly heard every word that Sheikh Ibrahim said to the fair Persian. "Is there anything, my charming lady, wanting to render the pleasure of the evening more complete?" "Nothing but a lute," replied the fair Persian, "and methinks if you could get me one all would be well." "Can you play upon it?" said Sheikh Ibrahim. "Fetch me one," replied the fair Persian, "and you shall hear whether I can or not." Sheikh Ibrahim, without stirring very far from his place, took a lute out of a press, and presented it to the fair Persian, who began to tune it. The Caliph, in the meantime, turning to the Grand Vizier, "Jafir," said he, "the young lady is going to play upon the lute, and if she performs well, I will forgive her, and the young man, for her sake. But as for thee, I will have thee impaled." "Commander of the true believers," replied the Grand Vizier, "if that is your intention, I wish to God she may play ill." "Why so?" said the Caliph. "Because," replied the Grand Vizier, "the longer we live in this world, the more reason we shall have to comfort ourselves with the hopes of dying in good sociable company." The Caliph, who loved a repartee, began to laugh at this, and putting his ear to the opening of the door, listened to hear the fair Persian play. The fair Persian began in such a style that, from the first moment of her touching the lute, the Caliph perceived she did it with a masterly hand. Afterwards, accompanying the lute with her voice, which was admirably fine, she sung and played with so much skill and sweetness that the Caliph was quite ravished to hear her. As soon as the fair Persian had finished her song, the Caliph went down the steps, and the Vizier followed him. When he came to the bottom, "I never," said he to the Vizier, "heard a more charming voice, or a lute better touched. Isaac, whom I thought the most skilful player in the world, does not come up to her. I am so charmed with her music that I will go in and hear her play before me. We must, therefore, consider how I can do it." "Commander of the True Believers," said the Grand Vizier, "if you should go in, and Sheik Ibrahim chanced to know you, he would infallibly die with the fright." "It is that which hurts me," replied the Caliph, "and I should be loth to be the occasion of his death after so many years of service. A thought is just come into my head that may succeed. Stay here with Mesrour, and wait for me in the next walk." The neighbourhood of the tigers had given the Caliph an opportunity to turning the stream, under a stately bridge, into his garden, through a piece of water whither the choicest fish of the river used to retire. The fishermen knew it well, but the Caliph had expressly charged Sheik Ibrahim not to suffer any of them to come near it. However, that night a fisherman passing by the garden door, which the Caliph had left open as he found it, made use of the opportunity, and going in, went directly to the canal. The fisherman immediately fell to work with his nets, and was just ready to draw them, when the Caliph, fearing what would make the effect of Sheik Ibrahim's negligence, but willing to make use of it to bring his design about, came to the same place. The fisherman, in spite of his disguise, knew him, and throwing himself at his feet, humbly implored his pardon, and excused himself on account of his poverty. "Rise," said the Caliph, "and be not afraid, only draw your nets, that I may see what fish you have got." The fisherman, recovered of his fright, quickly obeyed the Caliph's orders. He drew out 5 or 6 very large fishes, and the Caliph, choosing the 2 biggest, tied them together by the head with a twig of a tree. "After this," said he to the fisherman, "give me thy clothes, and take mine." The exchange was soon made, and the Caliph, being dressed like a fisherman, even to his boots and turban, "Take thy nets," said he to the fisherman, "and get thee about thy business." When the fisherman, well pleased with his good fortune, was gone, the Caliph, taking the 2 fishes in his hand, went to look after the Grand Vizier and Mesrour. He first met Jaffier, who, not knowing him, asked what he wanted, and bade him go about his business. The Caliph fell a laughing, by which the Vizier, recognizing him, "Commander of the True Believers," said he, "is it possible it can be you? I knew you not, and I ask 1,000 pardons for my rudeness. You are so disguised that you may venture into the hall without any fear of being discovered by Sheik Ibrahim." "Stay you here with Mesrour," replied the Caliph, "while I go and play my part." The Caliph went up to the hall and knocked at the door. Noor ad Deen, hearing him first, told Sheik Ibrahim of it, who asked who was there. The Caliph opened the door, and stepping a little way into the hall to shew himself, "Sheik Ibrahim," said he, "I am the fisherman Kerim, who, being informed of your design to treat some of your friends, have brought you 2 very fine fishes, fresh caught, to ask if you have any occasion for them." Noor ad Deen and the fair Persian were pleased to hear him name fish. "Pray," said the latter to Sheik Ibrahim, "let him come in, that we may look at them." Sheik Ibrahim by this time was incapable of asking this counterfeit fisherman how or which way he came thither, his whole thought being only to oblige the fair Persian. With much ado he turned his head towards the door, being quite drunk, and in a stammering tone calling to the Caliph, whom he took to be a fisherman. "Come hither, thou nightly thief," said he, "and let us see what thou hast got." The Caliph went forwards, and counterfeiting all the actions of a fisherman, presented the 2 fishes. "These are very fine ones indeed," said the fair Persian, "and if they were well dressed and seasoned, I should be glad to eat some of them." "The lady is in the right," answered Sheikh Ibrahim, "but what can you do with your fish unless it were dressed? Go dress it thyself, and bring it to us. Thou wilt find everything necessary in my kitchen." The Caliph went back to the Grand Vizier. "Jafir," said he, "I have been very well received, but they want the fish to be dressed." "I will take care to dress it myself," said the Grand Vizier, "and they shall have it in a moment." "Nay," replied the Caliph, "so eager am I to accomplish my design that I will take that trouble for myself, for since I have personated the fisherman so well, surely I can play the cook for once. In my younger days I dealt a little in cookery, and always came off with credit." So saying, he went directly towards Sheikh Ibrahim's lodgings, and the Grand Vizier and Mesrour followed him. They all fell to work, and though Sheikh Ibrahim's kitchen was not very large, yet there was everything in it that they wanted. The fish was quickly cooked, and the Caliph served it up, putting to everyone's place a lemon to squeeze into the sauce, if they thought proper. They all ate very heartily, but especially Noor ad-Deen and the fair Persian, and the Caliph stood before them. As soon as the repast was over, Noor ad-Deen, looking at the Caliph, "Fisherman," said he, "there never was better fish eaten, and you have done us the greatest favour." At the same time putting his hand into his bosom, and pulling out a purse of 30 pieces of gold, the remainder of 40 that Sanjar, the officer of the king of Bassorah, had given him just upon his departure. "Take it," said he to him. "If I had any more, thou shouldest have it. Had I known thee in my prosperity, I would have taken care to secure thee from want. Do not refuse the small present I make thee, but accept of it as kindly as if it were much greater." The Caliph took the purse, thanked Noor ad-Deen, and perceiving by the weight that it contained gold, "Sir," said he to him, "I cannot enough thank you for your liberality, and I think myself very fortunate in having to do with a person of your generosity. But before I take my leave, I have a favour to ask which I beg you not to deny me. Yonder is a lute, which makes me believe that the lady understands playing upon it, and if you can prevail with her to play but one tune, I shall go away perfectly satisfied, for a lute, sir, is an instrument I am particularly fond of." End of section 35. Recording by Nicole.